So my first trip to America was right after I finished school. I was 18 and up until then I'd really only seen it on television and in films, and as you guys know, a lot of that stuff is embellished. To me, America was all high school cheerleaders, jocks, obesity, but it also represented a hub of the Western world. To an 18-year-old Irish girl, the United States represented this huge place of possibility. It's where a lot of the celebrities live and a lot of global politics stem from the United States. I was super excited, and here's 10 weird things I was surprised to learn when I did get there. The crazy people out-crazy the other crazy people. In Ireland, we do have crazy people. By crazy people, I'm not referring to people with mental disorders, but rather people who fall outside of the social norms. What I'm saying is, if you want to be extra in America, you have to be super extra. For example, I met this one guy who plays golf on a pogo stick, and it turns out there's a whole community of people who play golf on a pogo stick. So I guess in order to stand out from the other people doing an unusual thing, this guy had chosen to wear a purple wig and Wellington boots and some chaps that were assless. That's what he chose to do. And, you know, more power to him. And what is normal anyway? Although if we were all extra, nobody would actually be extra because extra would be the norm, so maybe don't everybody be extra. Next up, area segregation. In Ireland, there are certainly different areas where communities of people live, but in general, there's no problem with one person going into another person's area. It's not a big deal. Now, on my first day out in the city of LA, I ventured out from my hotel in Inglewood and jumped on a bus. More on that later. And me and my friend just decided to see where the city took us. Apparently you're not supposed to do that, because we ended up in a little place called Compton, and we started to go for a little walk, and everybody was looking at us. And suddenly a phrase from a cowboy film jumped into my head. We don't like strangers in these here parts. Apparently Compton isn't frequented often by tourists. And the more we walked, the more people started to come up to us and tell us so. Some people were quite friendly and just suggested that our presence might not be so welcome and maybe we should leave. And another person told us they were going to kill us if we didn't leave. But actually, once most people found out we were Irish, they were pretty cool. Which leads me to my next point. People in America seem to love the Irish. I'm sure there are people in America who do not love the Irish. But overwhelmingly, I have to say, in America, I discovered most people love the Irish, which is pretty cool. It was a fairly regular occurrence to find once you opened your mouth, people would regale you with stories of their own Irishness. There are a lot of American Irish because let's face it, we went over there and we bred like rabbits. There are more Irish people in America than there are in Ireland. Thanks for your laws on contraception, Catholicism. From what I can understand, a lot of American identity is tied up in your ancestry. In Ireland, a lot of our historical records got destroyed, so we don't get that much opportunity to investigate our own ancestry. For example, I look at myself and I can pretty categorically conclude I probably come from Vikings. That is both cool and terrifying. And onto buses. Or not onto buses, as the case may be. In Ireland, a bus is a bus. Some people get the bus, some people drive, some people do both. It's not really a big deal. But in America, apparently it is a big deal. We would get on the bus and again, people would look at us like we had two heads. This was a while ago, and maybe the whole thing's changed, but it was very difficult to figure out when the bus would come and where it would go when it got there. And you couldn't just ask a person on the street. They didn't know, because everybody drives. People drive when they're 16 in America, which to me is kind of insane. At 16, I was making some bad decisions. It's just a bit mad seeing someone who, to me, is a child behind the wheel. In Ireland, we don't get to drive till we're 18, so everybody's getting the bus. But in New York, a lot of you guys get the subway, so I guess it's different depending on each city. The next one is something I never thought I would have an issue with. It is very difficult to find fresh fruit and veg. Okay, so this one may be slightly because we didn't have a car. I'm not a big mad vegetable head myself, but I was surprised that when we went into our local supermarket, there wasn't a produce section. But by week 3, I was kind of fearing scurvy. Having looked into it a bit more since, I think you guys generally have specific places that sell fruit and veg, but it was just something I noticed in my particular circumstances when I was there. And I'm the biggest junk food addict I know. Now the next one again could be LA specific, but I noticed when I looked around something that kind of creeped me out. Everybody in LA has the same nose. Irrespective of race or gender, everybody has had the same nose put on their face. In LA, people are very focused on what they look like, and I guess they all decided that this one nose was the way to go. They all agreed this was the perfect nose. Next up, sales assistants. I went to LA and I went to New York, and my god, could there be two different attitudes to being a sales assistant. So when I walked into a shop, they'd follow me around asking did I need help. Never really needed help shopping before, and if I just said I wanted to browse, they'd stand there with this big creepy smile looking at me. Initially, I thought everybody suspected me of being a shoplifter, but then I discovered that everybody in LA works on commission. I have never been more uncomfortable than when one girl was following me around carrying piles of clothes she'd picked out for me. And this is when I made the greatest shopping mistake of my life. I kind of sort of befriended one of the sales assistants. From her perspective, she just wanted my money, but I felt like we clicked. And so I bought a pair of jeans for $200 that I never actually wore because I told her I was a size smaller than I actually was because I didn't want her to think I was fat. Anyway, I don't know what actually happened to those jeans, but I think I probably buried them somewhere because of my shame. And onto American men. Oh yeah. American men are super direct. In Ireland, typically, a guy will have met you, slagged you off, introduced you to his mammy, and you'll have known him 6 months before he actually asks you out on a date. In America, a guy will literally come up to you in a shopping mall and say, "Hey, can I get you a coffee?" And at first, this being so alien to me, I was like,
"Oh, actually, I don't drink coffee, but I heard there's a Starbucks over there, so if I did want a coffee, I guess I could get one there."
And he looked at me very confusedly and walked away. We just don't have that kind of directness in Ireland, and it freaked me out. But actually, it's a very practical thing. I kind of wish guys in Ireland were more straight up, although it kind of gets rid of the courtship thing. I'm feeling a little torn here, so I'm just gonna say Irish men are great and American men are great, and I really don't have to make a decision on which one's greater right now, so... I really can't do this list without mentioning guns. And I'm not going to go into the whole constitution, whether guns are right or whether guns aren't right kind of thing. What I will say is until I went to America, I had never seen a real life gun up close. There was a police officer standing beside me one day and I looked down and I just saw his gun there and I had the strangest reaction.
"Don't shoot me, I'm Irish. Everybody loves the Irish."
I just started shaking and I was really freaked out. And that's not something I ever thought I would feel. The thing is, I just never thought I'd have that reaction. I was just really terrified. And walking around knowing that people maybe had guns on them was quite unnerving too. There's a lot more security in buildings like metal detectors and stuff, but it didn't kind of make me feel safer. And that's all I'll say about that. But the last thing I'm going to point to today is the extreme body types. There seems to be a category of people in America who are either on one end of the spectrum or the other. And there's the people in the middle, but it's no fun talking about how we're all the same. So yeah, there's super skinny health conscious people who can at times be quite skeletal or have these humongous muscles. And then there are people who are so fat they're in wheelchairs. We don't have that in Ireland that I know of. I was in Atlanta airport and I overheard this argument because they'd run out of wheelchairs. I did kind of wonder how the people had gotten there. And I can't say resolutely they were in wheelchairs because they were obese, but I did see one person bringing over like 5 cheeseburgers to a lady in a wheelchair. And I felt really sad. If that was the reason she was in a wheelchair, stop bringing her cheeseburgers. Because you're not helping her. And I met this other lady when I did find a farmer's market who literally just ate leaves. She just ate leaves. Like a variety of different leaves. She weighed about the same amount as Chewy. And he's very small. And I was nearly agog when I saw her. I had to stop myself going like this. So anyway, I made this list because somebody asked for it, so if you have any video suggestions, do comment below and I'll check it out. I hope it's been an interesting list for you. There are a lot of similarities, of course, too, but that wouldn't really make a very interesting list. So, or maybe it would make a cool list, I don't know. This is still a really small, really unmonetized channel, so if you could like, share, and but we struggled to find fresh fruit. But we struggled to find fresh fruit and veg. But we struggled to find fresh fruit. That's really hard to say. We struggled to find fresh fruit and veg. Try and say it, it's actually really hard. We struggled to find fresh fruit and veg.